3 Lives 3 Worlds. The Pillow Book. Lower volume. Original work by Tangqi Gongzi. English translation, Hamster 428. English editing, rockharlequin, Lily, JoannaKuang. Part 5 Mistaking Destiny. Chapter 17. Lord Lian Song wasn't really an honest immortal, so he did not shy away from doing unconscientious things. But because he never felt there was anything particularly problematic with these unconscientious things, he rarely ever felt guilty. In his words, it was the way of the nonchalant. In the words of Cheng Yu Yuan Jun, his heart's desire, it was the way of the unaccountable and bastardly. That bastardly Lord Lian Song was now a little sad and distressed because of guilt. To speak of Lian Song's sadness and distress, we must speak of Donghua Dijun. After the three returned from Araня's dream, the clever Bianiao servants winked to each other and prepared for them 3 nearest chambers without even waiting to be ordered. Seeing Dijun freely carry Fengjiu into one of these rooms, Lian Song got the picture and was just about to tell the servants they didn't need to follow in when he was surprised to find Dijun, who was already inside moments ago, suddenly popping up at the door. "Come in for a second." Lord Lian Song was a bit dumbfounded. He deliberately gave them the opportunity to stay in the same room so that they could express a few words of affection to each other. Right after an escape from perils was always a good time for confessions. These were times when a girl was most vulnerable. He could easily win her over with little more than some tenderness. It being such a critical moment, what in the world did he call him in for? Lord Lian Song cluelessly came into the room. When he saw Fengjiu lying fully clothed in bed, he said in befuddlement, "Why have you used the sleeping spell on her? When you guys came out, I saw that she had had some signs of coming to. I can understand that you're worried for her and thus want her to have a bit more sleep, but too much sleep isn't actually a good thing." Dijun used 2 strands of black ribbons to secure his cuffs and said in reply, "Help me keep an eye on her. Don't let her wake up before I come back." Lian Song looked at his fastened cuffs. "Isn't this your medicine-making attire?" He then added concernedly, "Don't tell me Fengjiu has fallen gravely ill." Dijun glared at him. "If you keep jinxing Xiao Bai to fall gravely ill, I'll beat you up till you fall gravely ill." Lord Lian Song came over and carefully examined Fengjiu's complexion. "Then why did you?" Dijun sighed, "She doesn't want to see me, so when I was in Araня's dream with her, I had to borrow Zai's identity. But if she wakes up and starts to remember things, it's going to be a little troublesome. The medicine bottle you brought from Lejun is going to come in handy now." Lian Song was shocked. "Are you going to feed her the medicine so she would forget everything from Araня's dream?" "I don't plan on making her forget everything," Dijun lightly replied as he fixed his cuffs, "so I will be reformulating the medicine to alter its function. I'll rewrite all of those memories, especially the ones where I was deceiving her." "This is what you came up with?" asked Lian Song in bafflement. As the god of romance, he never thought there could be such a boorish and blunt approach. He was stunned speechless for a good long while. "Although it's a bit risky to tell her the truth, after she wakes up, honestly confessing and begging for her forgiveness is the best way to get to the root of the problem. But if you do this, isn't it going to be even more problematic when she finds out the truth one day? Think about this carefully." Dijun raised his hand to rub his forehead. I called for the stone of destiny. It said our fate is too fragile and must not be subjected to too much turbulence. Xiao Bai still has some misgivings toward me. At this time, if she remembers I was lying to her in Aranya's dream, I can't say for sure what's going to happen. This is the only risk I don't dare take. No matter how I think about it, this is still the best solution. Lian Song sighed deeply and said, had you known this, you shouldn't have pretended to be Zeiss to deceive her in the dream. He then quipped, didn't you feel jealous watching her and your version of Zeiss get close? Dong Hua frowned and said in seeming puzzlement, why should I feel jealous? I was just borrowing Zeiss' identity, I'm still me. Didn't she fall in love with me again because she'll never be able to love anyone else but me? Lian Song could only chuckle. You're right. Dijun left the moment he was done speaking, leaving behind Lord Lian Song to sit by the bed and sigh. In crucial moments, being too deliberate might very well ruin things. Directness was indeed Dijun's style. Yet Lian Song was somewhat worried by the king's decision this time. He was also now an accomplice in snookering the little fox. Lian Song sadly looked to the bed, then woefully sighed again. He felt awful to be deceiving the innocent and kind fox, but if he didn't deceive her, Dijun was going to give him a hard time, and it'll be an awfully hard time at that. To deceive or to not deceive? He'd just have to deceive her. By the time Fengjiu opened her eyes, it was already dark outside. A half-moon shone into a hot spring in the room, its water shimmering like fish scales. In the air was a light floral scent. She gazed upward in the moonlight to the bed curtains. Next to the silk fabric hung a lacquered panel, on top of which was a pot of blossoming Mahamanju Saka. If she didn't remember incorrectly, this seemed to be the palace the queen had arranged for Dijun in Fanyan Valley. Had they returned? Fengjiu gazed to the fiery Manjusaka flowers above her head for a long time. Right, Dijun had exchanged the Saha fruit for Jihan. When she stole the fruit, she fell into Aranya's dream. Dijun followed in to rescue her. He also kissed her and said many, many gentle words, so she forgave him. Afterward, her soul for some reason took over Aranya's body and Dijun somehow became Zeiss. Aranya and Zeiss were husband and wife, so she and Dijun became husband and wife. Dijun gave her flower wreaths, took her to the maiden festival, brought her fishing, and viewed flowers with her. His wet long hair, their intimacy under the lotus leaves, Dijun's kiss. Fengjiu jolted awake. A long while later, she muttered, everything must have been a dream. She slowly turned around when she sensed something moving beside her. In the moonlight, she was staring at someone's face. Dijun's sleeping face. Fengjiu's heart skipped a beat. Or could it be that she wasn't dreaming? And instead, her deepest desires, the desires that she couldn't give up no matter how many times she tried, had actually turned into reality. Because she wasn't used to it yet, she kept thinking everything was a dream whenever she woke up each night. Dijun loved to sleep on his side and loved to leave his hair messy in his sleep. Her lips let out a small smile as she smoothed out the disheveled strands on his forehead. Slowly, her fair fingers glided along his headband, then slipped down to the silver hair behind his shoulder. Yes, this was real. She couldn't sleep, so she quietly watched his sleeping face. She suddenly felt warm and fuzzy. She leaned over and gave him a kiss. After staying connected like that for a while, she saw his somewhat groggy eyes lifting open. With her lips yet to part from his, she softly asked him, "Are you awake?" He looked at her for a while, then closed his eyes again. He pulled her into his arms and nestled his head on her shoulder. "Still a little sleepy, give me a moment," he said foggily. His breath tickled her ear. She hugged him back and lightly laughed. "It's still early. Go back to sleep. I won't bother you." His voice seemed to have gained some lucidity as he whispered, "What about you?" She placed her palm on the sleeping cup ointment behind his ear. She kept the pressure light as she softly told him, "I've slept enough. So that we can come back, I'm sure you've spent a great deal of energy. I'll help you massage, just sleep." He throated a reply which ended in a deep nasally sound. It was so unlike his usual calm indifference. She instantly melted. Her massaging pressure became lighter and softer. His lips suddenly fell upon her nape. She slightly leaned away from him. "Didn't you say you were still sleepy?" His hazy voice sounded at her shoulder. "I'm not that sleepy anymore." She moved away a little to watch his just awakened face. Under the moonlight, she saw a pair of deep dark eyes, a straight nose, and slightly set lips. Along with hair that was now disheveled again after she had smoothened it, they gave off a seductive languidness. He also watched her. Not being able to make any sound, she only mouthed, "Are you planning on being wicked?" She saw him slightly raise an eyebrow, his eyes displaying a smile. She was dazed. She took the initiative and planted a kiss onto his lips. But he instantly returned the attack mercilessly. She clung onto him. Out of the blue, a shatter sounded at the door. A white skirt flashed by, leaving behind fragments of a night pearl on the ground that were still illuminating in the moonlight. Startled by the sound, Fengjiu tried to get up. She had only risen halfway when she was stopped by Dong Hua. Underneath the quilt, Fengjiu whispered in an extremely flustered voice, "Isn't this currently Xiao Yan's residence? You didn't tell him that you've moved back here, did you?" Dong Hua used magic to lock the door and clear away the night pearl fragments. He lay down and pulled her out from the quilt as he softly told her, "I've already told Yan Chaiwa when I moved back here. The hot spring can help you recover from fatigue. He'll stay in Jai Feng Yuan for the time being." It was only a mouse that overturned the flower pot a second ago. Seeing her flushed cheeks and the vibrant phoenix flower on her forehead, he caressed her reddening eyes. "What is it? Did it scare you?" She glanced at him and gave a nod. He softly asked her, "You're scared even when I'm here?" She looked at him for a moment, then turned her head sideways and quickly said, "Fine, I wasn't scared. I was embarrassed, okay." He was stupefied. When he knew what he was doing, he found himself kissing her again. She also slowly slid her arms around his neck. The floral scent intensified in the room. Even the moonlight seemed to have picked up some of this fragrance. Early next day, Fengjiu received a message from Xiao Yan. He said he ran into Ice Face and Su Moi on their way to Qinan Palace and was glad to hear she had awakened. He asked if she could start drinking and eating meat again. If she could stomach them, she was invited to Ziwalixian for a rendezvous. Meng Xiao would like to say farewell to her. His handwriting throughout the letter was quite elegant, only rendezvous wasn't used very appropriately. Fengjiu could not help but sigh. In only a few days, Xiao Yan had become even more educated. In the letter, he also rambled on about some other things. He essentially told her the Bianiao clan found out that their identities were false when she entered Aranea's dream. Because of Dong Hua and Lian Song's presence, they were afraid to investigate any further. Nonetheless, Meng Xiao had asked him in private several times. Thinking of their friendship, he told Meng Xiao that he was in fact a demon lord, and although he left her identity vague, Meng Xiao was led to misunderstand that she was also from the demon clan. Xiao Yan said in earnestness that whether he continue the deception or come clean with him all depended on her. After all, even though Meng Xiao was so infatuated with the fabled version of her, he would never be able to beat Ice Face. For Meng Xiao's safety, it might just be better to continue keeping the truth from him. Fengjiu held the letter feeling heavy-hearted. Dijun told her this morning that they'd been in Fanyan Valley long enough. After he took care of the things in Qinan Palace, he would bring her back to Zhukongtian. Dijun's going to Qinan Palace was for the planting of the four-season tree that contained Aranea's essences and Chen Yi's soul. She had heard a bit about Chen Yi and Aranea's past from Dijun. It was like listening to a story. It was truly a lamentable past that caused her some sadness after hearing it. She pestered Dijun with questions about some other things and also found out that the present queen of the valley was indeed Junyo. The Junyo in Aranea's dream was unquestionably horrid, but the real Junyo wasn't at all hateful. Becoming the queen was just part of her good fate. She heard King Hua was met with somewhat of a bleak ending. It was said that Junyo later married a decisive prince consort who together with her confined King Hua in the inner palace. On her 20th year of confinement, King Hua finally went mad. She occasionally uttered a thing or two, but it was mostly about Aranea. To Fengjiu, these things had been resolved and had little to do with her. There was just the letter in her hand where Xiao Yan made a rare exception of going straight to the point. Meng Xiao. Meng Xiao was loyal enough to have really considered Xiao Yan and her to be his friends. Now that he knew they were leaving, he wanted to bid them farewell. She should be honest as friends. However, Meng Xiao, she wasn't very sure whether or not to tell Meng Xiao her identity. After a long time, she sighed and thought to herself she would just play it by ear. After more than a month, Ziwalixian was still as opulent as before. Lately, Meng Xiao liked to sit in the grand hall. He said it was so he could be closer to his people. When Fengjiu arrived, she vaguely heard him speak fervently about something. Even though I've never seen her, I'm sure she's a beauty whose face launches 1,000 ships, who's as tranquil as the moon's reflection on an autumn lake, whose gait sways like a willow in the wind, who's demure and virtuous, gentle and kind, respectful and prudent. If we must compare her to a flower, only the lotus could compare to her. She has the very elegance and purity of a lotus. Who? Fengjiu asked as she grabbed a cup from the table. Who are you depicting with such exaggerated descriptions? Is it a new musician at Ziwalixian? Xiao Yan helplessly looked at her. Meng Xiao is describing Her Highness Fengjiu of King Kaiu. Fengjiu slipped and fell from her chair. She sat on the ground with her cup in hand for a long time before she at last said, "Oh." Seeing her fall, Meng Xiao finally stopped talking. He sighed and reached a hand out to pull her up from the ground. Although you're always hanging out with us, you're still a girl. Please pay some attention to appearances. What decency is there to sit on the ground in front of so many people in public like this? A girl should still act like a girl, you know. Fengjiu took his advice and climbed up. Meng Xiao happily continued telling Xiao Yan, I'm sure Her Highness Fengjiu is the finest of all noble ladies. Because she's so pure and kind, she loves small animals and would never touch vulgar things such as meat and wine. She's a holy goddess who only consumes wind and dew, and so compassionate that she would even be reluctant to kill a mosquito. Fengjiu, who had just nailed a big fly with her bamboo chopstick, looked to Xiao Yan in uncertainty. Xiao Yan finally couldn't bear it as he interjected, although Fengjiu is indeed what was it again? Ah, a beautiful woman whose face can launch 1,000 ships. Next time you talk to me, please use some practical vocabs. Trying to remember these phrases gives me headaches. Anyway, where was I? Right, Meng Xiao, this is how you imagine Fengjiu to be, but what if she wasn't like that? Would you still love her? He pointed to Fengjiu, if she was like this, would you still love her? Meng Xiao looked to Fengjiu and laughed till he was out of breath. How could that be? He pointed to her and said, if Her Highness Fengjiu was anything like her, I'd have to ram my head into a block of tofu and kill myself. Xiao Yan painfully turned away. Fengjiu calmly gnawed on the leftover rabbit leg in her right hand and slowly said, I'm really Fengjiu of King Kaihu. General Chongsheng was my gift to you. That box was also my gift to you. I called you Xiaoming that time when I saved you. I'm really sorry to have kept this from you for so long. The restaurant was dead with silence. Meng Xiao held his cup in stupefaction. After a long time, he spoke with a trembling voice, Are you really Her Highness Fengjiu, Her Highness Fengjiu who does not touch meat and wine, who only consumes wind and dew, who loves little insects and small animals? Fengjiu said with some caution, Maybe you've misunderstood me a little. In truth. Meng Xiao tremblingly interrupted her, What were you drinking just now? Fengjiu looked to the cup in front of her, Wine. The tremble in Meng Xiao's voice was more apparent now, What were you eating? Fengjiu looked to the bones on the table, Rabbit meat. Meng Xiao's voice was starting to sound a little ghastly, What did you nail with the bamboo chopstick in your hand? Fengjiu looked to the bamboo chopstick in her left hand, A fly. Meng Xiao's eyes rolled back as he turned sideways and fell to the ground. Fengjiu and Xiao Yan cried in unison, Meng Xiao. Dong Hua, Lian Song, and Su Moi were walking into the hall at this point in time. When he heard this cry, Su Moi took 2 quick strides to see Meng Xiao lying on the floor. He asked in surprise, What's wrong with him? Xiao Yan squatted in front of Meng Xiao, poking at him for half a day. He said in sadness, Tisk, Brother Meng's decades-long dream has shattered into pieces. He passed out due to the unbearable blow. Luckily, I have some revitalizing medicine with me. Hold on, I'll take it out and let him have a sniff. Soon after, he who got shocked gradually woke up thanks to the revitalizing medicine. Meng Xiao climbed up, gave Fengjiu a glance, pushed Xiao Yan, who was squatting in front of him, away, then cried as he ran from the restaurant, Women! I'll never trust women again. If even the woman I worship turns out to be like this, how can I believe any other woman in this world? Lord Lian Song waved his fan as he failed to follow. What exactly shocked him so? He seemed as though he'll change his preference to men from now on. I know many men, however. He suddenly looked to Su Moi as though he was thinking of something. Say, what do you think about introducing your older brother to him? Su Moi gazed after Meng Xiao's figure. My brother prefers someone a bit more masculine. Prince Meng may not be masculine enough. Fengjiu was still holding the unfinished rabbit thigh in her hand. She looked to Xiao Yan with some sadness. I never thought I'd turn him gay. Should we chase after him? What if he does something reckless? Xiao Yan gave Donghua a glance, then looked back at Fengjiu and sighed, so what if he's gay? If he starts to like you again, that's going to be the least of his problems. It'll be good for him to go outside and cry it out. Perhaps he will think things through once he's done crying. In my excellent opinion, he'll only feel worse if we chase after him at this time. Best not to. Come. Let's just have some rabbit meat. They sat down and began to divide the rabbit. It wasn't clear whether Dijun was happy or upset. Fengjiu neared and whispered into his ear, this meat isn't any good. It's just good enough to fool them. I'll make you something better when we go home. Dijun's eyes finally gave hint of a smile. Okay. She continued whispering into his ear, you woke up so early this morning, I'm sure you're still tired. Let's sneak out in a bit. While you get more sleep, I'll make some soup for you. When you wake up, it'll be ready for you to eat. Dijun's voice became softer when he replied this time, okay. 02. After safely returning from Aranya's dream, Fengjiu noted that she had seen everyone except for Jihan. Although she knew now that Donghua harbored no feelings for Jihan, and although Xiao Yan also told her there were extenuating circumstances behind why Donghua agreed to marry Jihan that year, she had personally heard Jihan admitting her infatuation for Donghua. For this reason, she felt relieved that Jihan hadn't come to look for Donghua these days. But with how much she liked him, it was strange that she could stay away for that many days. After feeling it was strange, she thought it was also quite admirable. Her admiration only lasted 3 days and 5 hours, however, before Jihan couldn't endure any longer and finally showed herself. It was on the day Dijun was bringing her out of the valley. Although it was common knowledge that Fanyan Valley was difficult to enter yet rather easy to leave, those who lacked cultivation would still have a hard time leaving on days the entrance wasn't open unless they were led out by an experienced deity. This was the reason Dijun had to bring her out today. On behalf of Dijun, Su Moi had arranged ahead of time and told the Bianiaos that since Dijun liked his peace and quiet, there was no need for the entire clan to come see him out. They also waved the fanfare the queen had prepared, guaranteeing the peace along the way out. Fengjiu hadn't arisen early for morning walks in a long time. She also went to sleep late last night, so she couldn't help but fall asleep while walking. Even the scenic mountain road and lovely morning dew could not rouse her up. Passing a turn, a pond emerged into view. Fengjiu contemplated on whether she should come over to wake herself up with some water. In her hazy sight, she suddenly detected Jihan's fluttering white figure in the morning breeze beside the pond. Behind Jihan stood a gloomy Xiao Yan. To be successful in this courtship, Xiao Yan said he wouldn't be leaving with them and would instead stay in the valley with Jihan for the time being. Even if the path ahead was lined with obstacles, he was determined to walk that path with her. Looking at the unfolding scene, Sumoy stroked his jasper flute and said to Lian Song, "Should the two of us hide ourselves for a bit?" This was such a rare entertainment, one that was especially related to Donghua Dijun. The third prince thought it was a crying shame he couldn't come any nearer to watch and listen more closely. When he heard Meng Xiao, he snapped his fan open, covered his mouth, and cleared his throat. "Okay, you go. But me, I'll take a look, ahem, I'll take a look." Jihan and Xiao Yan strode to them, stopping when they were a few paces from Dijun. Jihan paid special attention to her grooming today, curved eyebrows like crescent moons, rouged lips like cherries, only her eyes were a little swollen as though she had just cried, but even that didn't affect her beautiful face. Jihan's beauty had never been the delicate fragile kind, but there was now something pitiful about her. As Jihan's eyes paused on Dijun's right hand, her face blanched white. Fengjiu didn't have enough sleep, so her mind was slow today. She followed Jihan's gaze to Dijun's right hand, which was holding her left hand. She suddenly remembered that when they left, because she was sleepy and dragging her feet, Dijun held her hand and led her away. He seemed to have not let go during the entire way. She thought of the time Jihan had come to gloat to her about the saha fruit. Although it was Jihan who came here herself for no reason, she felt it would look as if she was using their hand-holding to deliberately gloat to Jihan. Then what difference was there between her and Jihan or's hai he? She yawned, realized this didn't actually mean anything, pointed to the pond ahead and said to Dijun, "Jihan seems to have something to say to you. I'll go to the pond and splash myself awake." She took this opportunity to pull her hand away. Xiao Yan's exquisite face appeared grievous as he watched Jihan watching Donghua ardently. When he could not bear to watch any more, he turned and said to Fengjiu, "I heard there are water monsters inhabiting this pond. I'll sacrifice a little and go with you." Dijun glanced at Xiao Yan and said indifferently, "You needn't sacrifice yourself, I'll go with her." He turned and said to Jihan, "Whatever it is, we'll talk when I come back." Then he took Fengjiu's hand and led her away to the pond. Fengjiu was a little confused. "My face is mine to wash. Your talk is yours to exchange. Wouldn't that save time? Why would you go with me?" Dijun casually replied, "There's plenty of time, we're not in a hurry." After about 10 paces, Fengjiu seemed to have realized and said with some embarrassment, "Are you worried I'll fall into the water?" Dijun gazed down at her, "What do you think?" Fengjiu frowned, "You must be worried that I'll scare the monsters if I fall into the water." Dijun arched an eyebrow. "You know me so well." Fengjiu scoffed, then still annoyed, scoffed yet again. Fengjiu didn't see incorrectly. Jihan did cry the past few days. That night when she heard Dijun had returned yet he didn't come back to Fengjiu's manor but switched places with Xiao Yan instead, she felt their fate might still have a chance. Thinking that it was easiest to sway someone's heart after dark, she purposely produced a night pearl from her sleeve and walked to Dijun's chamber to visit him in the middle of the night. Ever since Dijun came to stay here, she was always the one to wait on him. There were times when she even pretended to not know he was inside and just walked in without knocking. Dijun had never said anything. That night, she had the same intention of quietly coming into Dijun's room to add more incense for him. If Dijun was asleep, the next day when he found out she had added incense for him, he would see how much she cared for him. If Dijun was awake, she wanted to grab this opportunity to confess her feelings to him. She knew she was beautiful, she knew even better that she was most beautiful under the vague moonlight. Even if she couldn't move his heart, she would still be able to leave a lasting impression. With these thoughts, she eagerly pushed open the door to Dijun's chamber. Right afterward, she cried and ran back. She cried several more days until she heard Dijun would soon be leaving the valley. She dried her tears, calmed down, and realized this was her last chance. So what if Dijun had Fengjiu? In the orderly scheme of things, it was Fengjiu who inserted herself in between her and Dijun. Even if Fengjiu had feelings for Dijun, they had only been for over a year. On the other hand, her deep feelings for Dijun had gone on for more than 200 years. They weren't something she could simply let go of. Xiao Yan said she didn't need to be so stubborn, then why couldn't he be less stubborn? This was a love she must still fight for. The words she wanted to say to Dijun today were self-humbling enough, however, and she did not want anyone else to hear them. Seeing Dijun take Fengjiu to wash her face, she froze a bit, then followed them and called after Dijun, "Teacher, please wait." Donghua turned around to face her. Jihan timidly said, "The truth is that I have a favor to ask of you today. I've especially come here to wait for you so that I may have your agreement." Donghua still did not speak. Jihan knew he was waiting for her to continue. "I made a mistake when I was young and ignorant, and for that reason could not return home for the past 300 years. I'm also too ashamed to go home. But I can't guest at Fanyan Valley forever. I hope you can think of my father and take me away from here. I won't mind even if I have to serve as a menial maidservant in your home." She gritted her teeth and gave Fengjiu a brief glance. "If you so kindly agree, I am willing to wait on you and Her Highness Fengjiu the rest of my life." Fengjiu started when she heard Jihan say her name, her sleepiness completely gone. Although Princess Jihan's words were very self-humbling, if Dijun was soft-hearted enough to bring her to Zhukongtian, it would be akin to bringing along a ticking bomb. Men don't pay attention to women's subtle thoughts, she didn't pay attention to them before either. Luckily, warrior Xiao Yan was there to give her some pointers and she knew better now. She hastily said to Jihan in complete sincerity, "In my opinion, Fanyan Valley is a perfectly beautiful place. It's even better because it isn't tainted with miasma from the temporal world. What's good about going to Taichan Palace as a maidservant? Palace rules are strict, a menial servant can't step into the inner rooms. I've already tried being that maidservant you spoke of. I tried for 400 years but could not see Dijun once. You'll only demean your status if you do that. As for me, well, I was young and quite thick-skinned." When Dijun looked over, she saw a playfulness in his eyes. In her mind, she thought perhaps Dijun was saying, "Your skin isn't any thinner now." Her face suddenly burned hot. Surprise surfaced Jihan's eyes, but she looked to Dijun full of hope. Donghua coldly said, "You can only keep the Qiushui poison under control if you remain in Fanyan Valley. If you can peacefully stay here for 3,000 years, the poison in your body will go away on its own." His words implied she didn't need to think about leaving the valley anymore. Jihan said in panic, "But wouldn't that mean I won't be able to see you regularly?" Fengjiu offered, "Actually, I can leave a portrait for you." Dong Hua suddenly spoke up, "Your father entrusted you to my care before he died. However, I've never liked to take care of someone who wants too many things from me." Jihan's face instantly turned ashen. At last, she miserably said, "I understand." By the pond, Fengjiu was looking absently into the water. Dijun soaked a handkerchief and handed it to her. Fengjiu placed it onto her face. Once the coolness seeped onto her skin, she finally awoke and said, "Luckily, when I was a servant in your palace, you didn't have a chance to recognize me. Had you known me then, you'd tell me the same thing you said to Jihan today." She hesitated. "Truthfully, what you said was a bit cold." Dawn began to rise from the east, bringing with it brilliant rays of light. Green grass laid out like a carpet by the pond. Dijun lay down and looked to the vast sky above. He seemed to be in thoughts as he said, "If I had known you then, my son would be old enough to go out for errands by now." Fengjiu was removing the handkerchief from her face and couldn't really hear him too clearly. "What did you say?" she asked. Dijun rested his head on his left hand, patted onto the grass with his right and said to her, "Let's lie here for a while before we go back." Fengjiu was lost in thoughts. She was very familiar with this position of Dijun's. He always lay on one of his hands when he fished and used the other to prop the fishing rod. While waiting for a fish to take bait, he sometimes even used a Buddhist sutra to shade his face from the sun. Dijun's many looks were all handsome, but she loved this peaceful one the most. Bewitched by his good looks, she lay down despite knowing there were people waiting for them. She even willingly crawled into his arms, although she didn't forget to remind him, "Meng Xiao and the third prince are still waiting for us. We're just gonna lie here for a bit, okay?" Among waves of green grass, Dijun hugged her and closed his eyes. "They'll find something to do. We don't have to mind them." Sumoy looked to the couple watching the sunrise by the pond and said to Lian Song, "Has this ever happened before? In your opinion, what should we do now?" Lian Song sighed. "He ditches me all the time, but this is the first time he ditches me for a girl." He waved his hand and conjured up a chessboard, then sighed yet again, "What else can we do but wait? Let's kill time with a few games, shall we?" End of chapter 17.